Welcome back to Nurse Burnout. This conversation today is jam-packed with wisdom, so we're just really going to dive right in. But I want to introduce you to Brooke Billingsley. She is the owner and creator of Task to Touch, e-learning training videos for nurses who have a desire to improve their communication, emotional intelligence, and conflict fluency skills. Her mission is to help nurses improve their resilience through emotional intelligence. So I'm pretty sure this conversation is for you. This is really for everyone because our emotional intelligence should be walking hand in hand with our spiritual transformation, which is a journey that we're going to be on for our whole life. So it goes with everything. Every time you transform more, your emotional intelligence is transforming as well. So this conversation is for you. It's also a note taker. You might want to be jotting notes down on your phone or if you have paper. So let's dive right in. If you're done running on empty, surviving shift to shift, and feeling life fatigue, then you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Shan Wright, registered nurse, holistic life coach, and mama of 4 who found her way through burnout and anxiety to peace and purpose with faith-based practices and God's design for whole person wellness. Here, I help nurses like you recover from burnout, regulate your nervous system, reconnect with God, and discover your identity beyond the badge. Are you ready to start caring for you the way you care for everyone else? I am. Go reheat that coffee again, and let's beat burnout together. Okay, hi Brooke. Welcome to Beat Nurse Burnout.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, first we just want to start simple. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for work.
Okay. So I have been in the healthcare space for a little over 25 years, and it's been on the studying human behavior aspect of getting an in-depth understanding of how patients experience their care in the U.S. healthcare system, what barriers exist from clinicians perceived in connecting with their patients, and how to influence better relationships. And so I've had a career of doing that and then taking all that research of sitting with patients bedside I did 1,000 hours sitting bedside with patients and said to myself, okay, with my team, how can we use this research to help nurses not only have more energy at the end of the day, but build resilience, have influence, and then understand what the patient really needs and wants in that connection. And so we created a company called Task to Touch, and they're learning videos. And so I'm excited to be with you today and kind of share some of the insights from those videos. They're in about 250 healthcare systems across the country now, helping over 100,000 plus nurses, not only new nurses, but existing nurses improve on their EQ and communication skills. So I'm not a clinician. I've just been in that human behavior portion of the healthcare setting and just really understanding how to connect the two together between the patient and the caregiver.
Yes, I love that. Now, I'm sure, listener, you can hear why I welcomed Brooke on to this podcast because she has a wealth of wisdom, 1,000 hours of research at the bedside, learning about the patient and the caregiver and that relationship. It's just so excited for what you're going to bring us. I would love to know as far as that experience with the patients, that 1,000-hour research. What was some of the outcomes of that research that really drove you to, okay, now we're going to turn this into videos to teach and help the nurses? What was the outcome of the research that drove you to that?
So before I delve into that, I just want to say I gleaned I already had, but I gleaned a deeper respect for what nurses have to do and how busy they are and what the expectations on them is. And so what I saw was opportunities for nurses to tweak just a little bit differently how they approached or what they said or how they interacted in their connection with the patient to make the experience perceived as more positive. And so as I sat bedside, we did our first initial study was with Cleveland Clinic. We did 6 weeks working on a lowest performing unit. and started to uncover, while the hospital is always interested in processes and wanting to know, are they doing hourly rounding, are they using the communication board correctly, and all of the protocols that are put into place in healthcare. So we would observe those types of things, as well as what was the level of emotion the patient was feeling, how connected did they feel to their caregiver when the caregiver interacted. So while the healthcare organization was interested in knowing different processes and protocols that were in place, we were also sitting bedside and talking to the patient one-on-one when there was no caregiver in the room, to understand what was important to them. And, as human beings, we can make things very complicated, but simply people want to be heard, listened to, cared for. And what does that look like to them? And so when we started to evaluate all the research over 6 weeks, and that study rolled into several health systems, so that's how I was able to do 1,000 hours sitting with patients. We started to see some common denominators, and we said, oh, you know what? We didn't want to show the nurse doing it wrong. We just wanted to show them, here's what you're doing. If you just added this, it could be a whole different experience for the patient. If you just said it this way, or when you came in, if you just approached them this way, or if you reiterated. And like, here's a simple example. When you're with a patient for 12 hours, sometimes the nurse they do shift change, right? And shift change, I love to say nurses get to work 12 hours and they click out, check out, but a lot of times that crossover for shift change, they're there 13 hours, right? And so they're busy doing their transfer with the next shift nurse, and they sometimes will forget to say goodbye to their patient. And so that relationship you built for 12 hours didn't have closure. And so it sometimes can feel unsettling for that patient who developed this, camaraderie with you all day long and talking to you. And all of a sudden this new person pops in. Like, hi, I'm going to be your new best friend for the next 12 hours. There was no closure. There was no warm bedside transfer. That transition didn't occur. And so we did a video on that. Like, what does that bedside shift change look like? And how does it look like in a positive way for the patient? So that's kind of what came out of the research was, how could we show nurses in a 5-minute or less acted out professionally video of what that could look like? And we wanted to create aha moments. And also it creates that warm transfer creates a positive experience for that new nurse taking on that shift, right? Because now I walk in and I say, hey, this is all day long, and this is what we talked about, and these are our goals. And she was able to walk the halls, and part of the goals on the communication board is she'd like to continue to progress along this line. And so I introduce you to my colleague who I talk up, and I manage up, and I say, this person's going to take excellent care of you, just like I did today. And that warm transfer creates that confidence in the patient to know they're well taken care of by the team, versus an alternate scenario, which says, when do you work again? Because you're the only one I trust, or you're the only one that really communicated with me. And now who do I have?
I remember when we kind of switched into that, I don't know, a few years before I quote unquote retired, but we had to do rounds in the patient room. And that's when we did that switch off and introduced the new nurse, and then left and said our goodbyes and said when we'll be back. And it definitely did make a big difference in that patient caregiver relationship. That's cool. I know that you actually were on the other side as well as a patient. Can you take us back into your journey as being a patient, and what kind of things that you kind of noticed and what had influence in you from the nurse that maybe we just aren't aware of, and it gave you new insight?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with stage 2 triple positive breast cancer in 2011. Here I had been doing all this market research and healthcare mystery shopping and ethnographic research sitting bedside. And the aha for me was, even though I'm sitting bedside and even though I'm using mystery shoppers to simulate patient experiences, the missing point was, it's an emotional journey. And now I'm in it. And I went, oh my goodness, this is very emotional and very personal to me because I have cancer. And I became keenly aware of how the interactions with others impacted me, especially going in for my first chemo. How was the nurse going to respond to me? Was I going to have confidence in knowing they were going to take care of me? And as a Christian, I did a lot of prayer because I'm not sure if anyone is delighted to hear a cancer diagnosis or not in shock. And so when I heard the cancer diagnosis, I had strong faith, but I literally was in shock for about 2 weeks, just trying to come to grips with it because I was rehearsing in my mind what the word cancer meant from my frame of reference, right?
Yeah.
And so I kept praying about that first chemo because the idea of getting adriamycin is just, oh, it's a toxic, toxic chemo. They can't even put it in a bag. Okay. They come out in hazmat gear. So if that's not intimidating enough, they bring out these two red vials and you're like, they're going to put that in me. And so I kept praying for protection because I was a health nut, and people were like, I can't believe
Yeah.
you got cancer. Mine was estrogen derivative. So some things beyond your control. And I kept praying for protection. So when I walked in for my first chemo, it was an open cubicle. So I could see everyone, which is intimidating in itself because there are different levels of the journey that people are on when they're getting chemo. And I remember being extremely nervous, and the nurse yelled out to me. I didn't have a navigator like some hospitals have. In this particular health system I was in, you're kind of like, just go through the door. So I went through the door and I heard, put your yellow slip in the slot on the nurse's station and we'll get with you in a minute. And so I'm just kind of standing there. So the nurse said to me, have you had your labs done? And I said, no. And she goes, go back out the door and go around the corner to the laboratory. So I went around the corner to the laboratory. And again, I'm inserting my personal God stories because that's who I am. I got in there and I saw a Bible next to the computer and I saw a scripture on the refrigerator. And she was the phlebotomist. And she said, I'm not allowed to talk about God, but if someone asked me, I can mention it. And I said, well, I've been praying for protection today. This is my first chemo. I've been a nervous wreck coming in here. And she said, if it's okay, she goes, I'd love to pray with you.
Oh,
And so she was my angel at that moment. And so
yeah.
during the journey, certain people who showed kindness, I called it survival kindness when I did a keynote on, being the cancer patient. And I meant that survival kindness in that I'm in my world of navigating this new cancer journey with outcomes that are unknown, and people who were compassionate towards me and showed that kind of kindness really stood out because it was almost as if they made a permanent, indelible imprint on my life at that moment. And because it's so closely tied to the emotion of what you're going through.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized if I could convey that to other nurses, that you have so much influence and more power than you think you do by the words you use, by the gestures that you show, by those gentle gestures of just touching an arm or just reassuring someone or just giving them encouragement for the day, that if you can remember that in the midst of all the chaos of what's going on in your shift and unpredictability of what's happening during that time that you're there on the floor, if you could just be mindful of that, what a huge impact that you could have on another person.
Oh, yes. That's so good. I just love that phlebotomist, that example that you brought up. I mean, there's so many things that you're right that we can do as believers, and we have authority in Jesus, and it's just being bold in that moment, and that like transpired and like helped you so much in your day, that first day. Whereas like if she just kept quiet and you're like, gosh,
Mhm.
I see a Bible, I see a word, I see a thing, but I don't want to ask for prayer, but like, she was bold and took courage. And so I hope that's encouraging to you, listener, to you have the authority to act out in your faith. And when that patient gives you that little green light, like to really jump in and to care in that way. But I do want to bring up how my listeners here, we are burnt out or headed that way because we have been caring and pouring our emotions and our care and love for everyone else all the time. And then we tend not to care for our own emotions.
Mhm.
And we are very empathetic, but then we feel for all our patients throughout the day. And then we can push these feelings down. We stuff like our personal emotions and our even job related emotions. We push them down, and then that results in numbing us, or they come out sideways. They're going to come out eventually, right? And so a lot of like a burnout sign, flashing warning sign, is when your emotions come out sideways on other people or patients when you definitely don't intend it to, or nurses, other staff. How do you speak to that? Because I'm thinking that's a little bit of emotional intelligence and being aware of your emotions and how to care for your own emotions. Where does this come in your videos and your research and kind of how you teach?
So I did a video on burnout and self-compassion. And during COVID, that was the pinnacle of burnout and needing resilience, because
Yes.
there were so many unknowns, and there's a lot of fear, and some of it was real and some of it was made, embellished. And so one of the things that we started to do was we started doing Compassion Tribe. We were doing weekly meetings with nurses from all over the country who wanted to call in. And then we created an actual certification training program that I was a part of. And my role was to train on self-compassion. So what does that look like? And there's a misnomer. So there's some common themes of what people think self-compassion is, that it's self-centered, or that it's narcissistic, or that it's like pity. And so first of all, we have to understand what self-compassion is. It's, there's three components. And Kristen Neff, if you haven't read Kristen Neff, I would encourage your listeners to read something about that. She has a book. I think there's some podcasts from Kristen Neff, because she's kind of the guru on self-compassion. And she said the three main elements of self-compassion are self-kindness, understanding that we're all in this as a common humanity, and that mindfulness of being aware of what's happening around you, right? And so if you can have those three things in mind, that if you are trained and you understand that self-compassion is needed in order for you, it's like it's your love tank, right? And so I don't show up at a presentation and my laptop's not charged. Everything has to be charged up in order for me to give out. And we can't give what we don't have. And so if you don't take care of you, I mean, some of us, it's a badge of honor. It may be how we were raised. I was raised, we would one up each other on how hard someone could work, right? And how little sleep we could get by on. And interesting part is that healthcare people somehow think they're immune from being human. If you feel lightheaded because you haven't eaten for 8 hours, the expectation that you're going to run yourself ragged and not drink any liquids, you're not getting hydrated, you don't have any protein in your system, you're operating on 4 hours, and you have to operate full tilt with 6 patients. That's a lot to ask of your body and your mind. And so it's okay to step back and say, you know what, I need to check in with myself and take care of myself. And so we did a video and we said, when you're asking yourself how to be kind to yourself, here's the step in kindness. You can check in with yourself and ask yourself, if I'm feeling stressed right now, I'm at capacity, I'm responding, everything's like right at the surface, on edge, right? And I'm having a hard time even being tolerant, let alone compassionate. You can ask yourself, what am I observing? That's number one. What am I feeling? Do I have a request of myself or someone else?
Yeah.
And then allow yourself to be honest and give honest answers, and being supportive, and just understanding that at that moment, you're being really harsh and critical. Your inner voice is really critical of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And that, you know what? I was up with a toddler all night last night. I'm operating at half my brain is functioning where it needs to be. Now I'm operating on, 6 cups of coffee, and I got no nutrition in my system, and I really need some water because I'm starting to feel lightheaded. So those are the things to stop and kind of check in with yourself and say, you know what? I need to pause and say to someone, I need 5 minutes. Even if it's to go into the restroom and just do some quiet, mindful, deep breathing, it's okay. It's what you need. And it's okay. It's not a weakness to say that's what you need, because we have to take care of ourselves. And if we don't take care of ourselves, our bodies will tell us. I'm working with an exec right now who was really high up at Eli Lilly and loved her job, but the job just became so demanding that eventually your body will talk to you if you ignore it enough. and it won't
Yep.
talk to you in a good way. It'll talk to you in
Yep.
a I'm going to shut down on you way, and it will force you into taking a break, if not stepping away from your job. So it's really important to not see it as a weakness. I for a long time in my 20s and 30s, I always functioned on 7 or 8 hours of sleep. And I remember that was like a badge of weakness. Why do you need so much sleep? I only need 5 hours. I can get by on 4. Now science comes out and says, no, everybody's body needs at least 7 hours of sleep, that it
Yeah.
needs that a time to recuperate and reset and be ready for the next day, and that there are key things that happen in your whole physiological makeup that says you need that rest. And so some of us, it's the norms that we were raised with or that we created for ourselves. So it's okay to say, you know what? I need a mental health break. I need to take a day off soon. And I need to do nothing. That day off isn't so that you can catch up on housework or some other task or running around for anyone else. I need to go out and be in nature, or I need to,
Yeah.
if I can afford it, go get a massage. Whatever that is, that mental health break is just sustaining you so that you can go back and give what you were entrusted with, what you were blessed with, and what your gifts are, because you can't give what you don't have. And if you deplenish it, that's how that burnout happens, because you haven't helped yourself build that resilience back up. It's like your immune system. If it gets run down, it takes a chunk of time to build that immune system back up.
Hmm.
You don't flip a switch. After cancer, it took a whole year for me to get my immune system back up. I had to do a lot of natural
Yeah.
things that I could control, that I could do to keep it, to get it to where it was before, so that it could function in a normal way. And so I think that's the same way in building resilience. So we wanted to create this video that just allowed that person to say, you know what, I'm criticizing myself and I'm saying I'm a failure and maybe I shouldn't be a nurse. No, how about I'm just going through a really rough week, and I need to
Hmm.
regroup and I need to check in and be mindful that I need to say, okay, I need to pause. This has been a rough day. I'm going to try with what I have. And sometimes when you say I'm going to give it your all, giving it your all might be 50% because that's all you got. And
Yeah.
that's okay. That's not a failure. That's just saying I'm being realistic. Today I got 50%. I'm going to give all I have, and that's 50%. And that's
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah. Oh, all that is so good. I mean, you were saying like we can't pour out what we don't have. And I think this idea of self compassion is so good because that inner critic is really,
Mm,
really loud with high achievers.
hmm.
It's basically how
Yep.
a lot of us got to where we are.
Yep.
And we hear it, and that inner critic is not compassionate at all. So, in order to turn that off and receive compassion for yourself, is the only way you're going to increase it and be able to give it out. And I used to, as a burnt out perfectionist nurse, I used to
Mm,
pray for more compassion. I
mm,
used to come to Jesus's
mm,
feet and say, God, you are full of compassion. I need some of it. And he had to tell me that I'm not receiving it for myself, so I can't give it out. It was
mhm.
like, and I didn't even learn that for years later. So it's a hard lesson to learn. Okay, so that brings me into your videos more. Like, okay, so are you saying you have these videos available for nurses to watch and learn, or how do they learn these amazing skills and wisdom that you've put it in these videos?
So I personally do consulting and work with healthcare systems and do trainings. And then my videos are under contract with HealthStream, a healthcare learning management system out of Nashville. And so they sell them to healthcare systems that use them as part of their training and ongoing nurse education. And I also believe that they're creating, if you go to HealthStream, they're creating an individual, like individual nurses can go and sign up for doing advanced training themselves and see the videos. And so it can be self guided instead of just through an organization. So that would be through HealthStream. Yeah. And
Okay.
I was going to say something you reminded me of when you were talking about compassion. I'm always reminded of the story of Mary and Martha, because I'm a Martha. I'm the
Yes.
doer.
Yep.
I'm a
Yep.
get it done list
Think
maker. I love lists. I love
I think
checking stuff
most
off my list.
oh
I
yeah.
like making a list for my list because it's really satisfying to go through and go, I did that. I did this. I did this. I
Yep.
did this. Right.
Yep.
And what did Jesus say? When Martha complained, how come Mary's not helping me? He said, Mary's doing what's better. She's just resting
Yeah.
and being in my
Yeah.
presence. I
Yeah.
think I have to tell myself that story frequently because it's okay to give yourself permission to just be still or walk in nature. Like this morning, hearing the birds sing, if you're in the Midwest, we are so, so grateful. Being in nature and taking a walk makes me feel close to God.
That's so funny you bring up Mary and Martha because that was my burnout moment with God about almost 9 years ago now. It was with my third baby, and I had that same prayer that Martha, I called it a prayer, but she was talking to Jesus's face. But that's how I was. I went to God and I said, I need help. No one's helping me. I can't run this
Mm-hmm.
perfect house, raise these 3 kids. I now have a baby boy. I was in postpartum anxiety and I didn't know how to handle life. And I'm crying out for help, which is exactly what Martha was saying. Tell Mary to help me. And he
Mm-hmm.
said to me exactly what he said to Martha. He said, and I didn't even remember this story literally until a year ago well, I know the story. I've heard it lots of times, but I didn't
Right.
remember that the exact words God said to Martha was exactly what he said to me. He didn't even highlight that to me until 1 year ago. But and that came from meditating on that scripture. So we read a lot of scripture and we're like, how does this apply to our life? Because we just rush past it. And it's like, well, take a second, take a rest, literally sit at Jesus' feet and take in his words. Anyway, when he said, Shan, I'm not going to help you. No, you don't need help. You're doing way too much. I didn't ask you to do all those things.
Mm-hmm.
I asked you to do 4 things. And it was
Mm-hmm.
be with me,
Mm-hmm.
be with your own self, which was like the self-compassion. He said, move your body 30 minutes a day, be kind to your body. Number 3, be with your husband. I gave him to you in this season. So spend time with him. Don't just like be with the kids all the time. And number 4 is spend time with your girlfriends and have fun, laugh,
Mm-hmm.
enjoy life. And he said, do those 4 things and
Yeah.
you'll have peace. And the number 1 was being with him. So I love that you brought that up because that is what I feel like a lot of my listeners are struggling with. They want to get to Jesus's feet. They know that's where the peace is, but they feel all this pressure to be the best nurse and to take care of all these patients and take care of their families, and they don't know how to do it all when all they want to do is they don't know how to rest. They don't. And so I know that did you finish your book or you're writing a book about
I am.
holistically caring for yourself when you went through your cancer journey? So bring us into some of those moments of how do we rest when we have so much going on, maybe physically, mentally, emotionally, in our lives. How can we find holistic healing, which comes through rest?
Yeah. So, something I frequently say to myself is, what would my 80-year-old self want me to do? So I kind of set it
Yeah.
up like if I were looking into the future and I was happy with what my outcomes were today, what would my 80-year-old self want me to do? And one of the things that would want me to do is to take time to be with others, to be generous, to be kind, to not be so regimented on a schedule that I don't have time to do the important parts of what life is about. Because we live in a society that values getting the most accomplished, making the most money. It's always about moving forward, and we never celebrate
Yeah.
where we are, right? I mean, even women listening now, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're in your 20s and 30s and you are self-loathing the way your body looks, I'm going to tell you to stop it because I go back and I look at photos and I go, what was my problem? There is no
Yeah.
such thing as perfection. And if you go back and ask your kids if they remember whether or not the lunch was perfect and the house was clean, they don't care. They really just care that you were there and that you
Mm-hmm.
did something fun with them or that you told stories or you were present. That's what they care about. They don't care about the other stuff. They really don't. You can have a cardboard box and turn that into a whole fun event for a week with kids. They don't care. And we have somehow quantified what we think our success is. So if if you are looking at your life right now, I would tell you the perfectionism game doesn't end well. It's really stressful on
Mm-hmm.
your life. It's constantly seeking to make everything look like it does on Facebook or Pinterest, which is so
Mhm.
unrealistic, right? I mean, we put our best selves out there. We can all do AI photos of ourselves and look 20 years younger if we want to, and that's not real. So, what's real is the human aspect of your interactions with others, taking the time to say, how are you doing? And not walking away before they answer.
Yeah.
And if they answer and you go, "Well, are you sure? Is everything okay?" And giving them a moment to say, no,
Yeah.
I just lost my dad yesterday. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. And then just pausing with them and being with them. That's what patients want. Some of them are chatterboxes. I get that because I frequently hear nurses say, how do I leave a room where the patient wants to talk and talk and talk? And you can do something
Yeah.
funny and say, oh my gosh, you have the best stories. I got 5 other people I gotta go check on. So let's continue that story when I come back to see you.
Yep.
There's fun ways you can do that with them without shutting them down.
Yeah.
And they love that you care. Like, hey, listen, if you weren't here today, what would you be doing? Or do you have some grandkids? Or do you have a pet at home that misses you? Those commonalities that we connect with people make all the difference in the world. They matter more than efficiencies. Um, and obviously, communication is important because people want to know that you're taking care of them and you're following through, especially when it comes to managing their pain. But what we found was that human aspect was so important. And so I would tell someone who's listening now, you know what? The things that you might put as the top priority list for you may not really be important in the long haul, because what people remember about you will never be about what you drove or what you look like or how you dressed. It will always be about how you made them feel, how you interacted with them, if you were kind and generous. I mean, I love it when someone will come up and say, do you remember when you did such and such? And I'll go, wow, I don't. Well, that really meant the world to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm grateful that they remembered it. And I forgot. I mean, it was just part of just doing it, right? Just being generous or buying someone lunch or I mean, I've been around people who are extremely generous. I've been with people who, a girlfriend was complimenting another girlfriend on her purse, and she must have said 3 times, "I love your purse." So she said, "Okay." She dumped out the belongings in the purse, and she said, "It's yours." She goes, "You just love it so much. Here you go." And I've
Yeah.
done that.
That's
I've
awesome.
repeated that. I had someone comment about a necklace I was wearing. I said, "That's a third compliment you've given me." Now I'm not giving away my actual jewelry on my hands that are from my husband, but I took
Right.
it off and I go, "Here you go." I go, and she goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "You seem to really like it." And I go, "It's just a necklace." And then I forget about it because those are the things I would tell you is the most important is like those generous moments with your kids, right? Not the perfect cupcakes, not the perfect this. They don't care. They just care that you got to play and frost something or play fun games with them or that you got to mess up with Play-Doh. I don't, they don't really care. They just want to know that they had that time with you. And so when I look back, I go, God, I wish I had been more calm about that stuff, even with my career. I wished I had told myself it would have been okay to take a break from my career just to be with my small children because you never get it back.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say in taking care of yourself and looking at what's important and then looking back at what you remember because some of the stuff we've made priorities we forget about and it didn't matter. No one cared.
Yeah, I think when we're in burnout, we're kind of in like this survival mode. Well, we are in a survival mode. It's really hard to remember that everything is a season and that
Mhm.
these kids are going to be only this young and in your house for a season. There's only going to be a season where you have to be a caregiver at work and then come home and be a caregiver for the rest of the hours you're awake and then do it again. Like that's a short season. And so don't live that season in survival mode because God's giving it to you for a gift. And
Mm,
so if he doesn't want us to be barely surviving life. So
right.
I like how you're saying, like, change your perspective of we only have this short time. We're not promised. I hate saying this, but it's such the truth and sobering thought. We're not promised tomorrow. So you
Right.
have to take what you have and to live stuck in survival. That's not really living to God's glory. And that's not really pointing your kids to God. And it's just it's a hard thing to wrap your head around when you're so in it, but to take that step back and really look at what's the like you said, what is priority right now? How can I care for myself so that I can care better for others, love them, be emotionally intelligent, be resilient, it starts with caring for yourself. And so I love that.
And it's a season. It's not forever, right? I mean, you can do new things all the time. I mean, I will be 66 on my next birthday, which is really weird to say, but I'm doing something. I'm doing aspects of my background, but I'm doing it differently, and I'm doing it in other areas outside of healthcare. I'm able to use my attributes and my skill sets, doing some new projects, and I'm still working, and I'm still vital. So there's different seasons. It's not like it's a one or done, or I have to make or break it right now. Just know that it's okay if you have to pause for a little bit or shift gears. It's okay, because your skill sets are your skill sets. And you can continue learning even when you're not on the job if you decide to take a break. It doesn't mean that somehow you've gotten off the train and you can't get back on. That's what I would tell, especially those young career, you know, fighting that I have a family and I got to keep this career thing going, and then I got more responsibility at work, because you don't get back those years your little ones are hugging and kissing on you and want to spend time with you. Once they get to be a teenager, it's a whole nother ball game, because I have granddaughters that I've invested in, because I had two sons, I didn't have any girls. And I'll tell you what, when they hit high school, you have to vie for their schedule because they're busy. And
Mm-hmm.
I relish those days. When I look at my little digital photo album and I see those days when they were 3 and 4 and they loved you unconditionally and couldn't wait to see Nana, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love those days. I wish those days were still here. And they're not. I made the most of them while they were here. So I'm just telling moms, because I got told that and I kind of resented it early on when I was um, trying to build my career. And someone said, oh, enjoy these times with your kids right now. And I thought, really, I want to hear you tell me to build my career. And now I understand why it was said to me. And so hindsight is everything, but I would just say give yourself permission to to not be perfect and to spend the time with your kids, because it will in a blink of eye be over.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we could talk forever, and I just looked at the time. And I'm like, oh gosh. Well, um, we've got to wrap this up. But what's the last thing you want to leave with these nurses who are, trying to be resilient? Life is hard,
Mm.
and then leave anything else, like where they can find you or get in touch with. You said HealthStream for your videos, but anything else you want to give them as information?
I guess what I'd leave them with is to really come to grips with the fact that they have such influence in their day to day interactions with the patient, in their words they use, the gentle gestures that they express, in the encouragement and just the time they spend with their patients. That it really does matter, even if it feels like they're being rushed or they don't think that their job has an impact. It really does, because the patient, and the research supports, the patient really views their care through that clinician who spends the most time with them, that 12-hour shift
Mm.
and that impact they have. So if you can encourage your patient, you can. I mean, I've seen such wonderful examples of encouragement from nurses saying, you're doing such a great job, or let's try to get you out walking the halls today. We know you want to get home to see your little dog that you talked about. All of those things. Don't ever underestimate the power that you have in the job that you have. That in as a Christian, you have been empowered in a new whole way too, because you are the hands and feet of God, right? And you don't have to be overt in your faith. You can just show it, and
Yeah.
they'll sense it. They'll know it. And then the second part I would just say is, don't ever feel guilty for taking care of yourself. That self compassion is not selfish. It really is that inner critic. Think about the way you talk to yourself. If you talk to your friend that way, would your friend want to be around you? And so it helps you temper what you say to yourself, because God already tells us that we are his sons and daughters, and so we are valued and we are heirs of him. And so how would we want him to talk to us? How would he want us to talk to ourselves? And so that's part of self-compassion as well. And you can find me brookebillingsley.com. I have a website. Reach out through there. You can email me if you'd like. If you want to be connected somehow and watching some videos, I'll try to set up a demo for you. But yeah, reach out to me. I'd love to connect with you. And I love the work that you do. It's important. I have a huge respect for nurses and the work that you do and how much you have to manage and the impact that you have. So continue to do what you do, and do it in a way that protects yourself and builds that resilience so that you have more of you to give away in a positive, compassionate way.
Yeah. Oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. This has been an amazing conversation, and I know the nurses are going to get so much from it. So thank you so much, Brooke.
Thanks, Shan.
I pray that blessed you, and it would bless me big if you would share the show with a friend or write a review. It will only take a few minutes, and it's the best way for people to find the show too. I would love to connect over on Instagram at @theshanwright, or you can email me hello@theshanwright.com. And until next time, may the Lord's face shine upon you and give you peace. Shalom.